Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to talk about our new kind of web series that we have going on, which is going to be more focused on tech talks, where we kind of just generalize on some of the things we're seeing or best practices we want to look at. Hopefully, these will be engaging for everybody, and they'll be broken up into little clippets so you can watch them as you need to. But to start off with the first one, I think one that's kind of important to a lot of people, especially as we look at moving to clouds or moving to locations, is going to be about how your campus and data center and kind of we might have that, but how we might change it. And so to go that route, we did bring on Davis. He's our data center specialist. So yeah, if you want to take a moment to kind of introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, good. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so I'm a data center specialist. I came over to Cisco just about a year ago. Before that, I worked in a major enterprise supporting data center networking there. Got a lot of experience with traditional network and SDN and specifically ACI. And then I use that expertise to help our customers.
Very cool. Do love
Davis
the Darth Vader.
He is definitely the in-house ACI expert. No questions about it.
I'm sure you get pinged a lot during the day. Hey, what is this?
I do get pinged from time to time, yes.
I can attest to that. I pulled Davis on to a call last week with no notice. So
You come with me. Well, the first one we're going to start with here is kind of what our environments look like today for most customers or those that are looking at trying to do either upgrades from their 6500s, 6800s. Maybe they're trying to look at doing some DR. How do I roll that in? And so some of the things that we're seeing is most environments today either have a collapsed core and distribution. You've got maybe even access in there. Maybe that 6509 has line cards for access ports, and you got your fiber there, and you're doing all your routing. You're doing hot swappable routing protocols, and that's kind of what we see if you haven't split it yet. I mean, some of the downsides for that is, your maintenance window really impacts everybody. There's no separation between data flow, traffic paths. Everything's got to go through those cores, even if it's your data center side. What else you kind of seeing out there? We also see like access stacks kind of as cores, depending on where they're at, just for port availability.
I think to go even further back in time, like a lot of folks were using the three-tier system, right? The core distribution access.
Yep.
And as switches and routers, the horsepower started to amp up, we were like, hey, let's collapse that. So, yeah, I think you're right. A lot of folks ended up in that scenario where they have the collapsed core, probably access split away, maybe some aggregation due to fiber constraints. But what else are you seeing, Davis?
No, I mean that's a lot of what we're seeing. We see it. I see people with Nexus gear that is being used for campus stuff, and I see people using campus Catalyst gear in the data center. So a lot of you don't really need PoE in the data center. You don't necessarily need the horsepower of a Nexus device in the campus closet. So, but we do see a lot of that. So
I did also see, like you mentioned, a lot of Nexuses being used as the campus side. And what you find out as we start going into, and sorry, I guess I should have said this. The plan is we're going to talk about kind of what the environment is. Second video is how we look at designing for the campus side. And then the third video here will be talking about how we design for the data center and the reason why we want to kind of break some of these things apart to do a separation of your campus and your data center. And so, yeah, right now, just wanted to kind of generalize on what we see today, why we're kind of set up that way. And so, to go back, I do see people that have Nexuses that are acting as like their total core, even with the campus side. And on the Cisco side, when we start going really into automation and doing this intent-based networking and the ability to do segmentations and connectivity on campus side, it doesn't flow over well on the Nexus. And that's where you kind of see that you need to have that separation, because either you need some type of campus core that can handle the way that the DNA features work on campus. And then when we'll talk about this in the other ones, but when you go to the data center, you run into ACI or DCNM, which is a different type of way of managing systems and workflows. And so you can't have both if you're trying to go down that route of I want this in my campus, but there's two different ways of thinking about going on there. So anything else that stood out? I know mostly chassis is few.
And maybe we're still going to get to this part, but one of my big concerns that I see with the collapsed core is security. Security today is more important than it ever has been. You hear cases of ransomware all the time, and the ransomware can be really expensive and devastating. And and all it takes is somebody gets into your enterprise and one node somewhere in your enterprise, and if you don't have good east-west security, they've got keys to the kingdom. They can get everywhere, right? So separating that campus from the data center is the first step to that. Really defining the solid boundaries between your data center network and your campus network, and putting good security tools in between is key. So
What about for customers that say, well, I could still have it on my chassis, but I could just do ACLs? I mean, I could then just allow what I want. I mean, there's an answer to it, but granted, it's not easy. I mean, you're going to have a very long list of ACLs. Who's going to update those ACLs?
Right,
What if
right.
somebody leaves? So
It's a management nightmare. And
Yeah.
talking about the separation of duties there and the security concerns, every network is its own unique little snowflake, we'll say. But talking about collapsed core, collapsing data center into core and all of it together, some folks even took that a step further and collapsed like DMZ core into their campus and data center core, and that's even more of a security concern.
Sure.
So yeah, it kind of depends on the scenario, but yeah, every network's a little bit different.
okay. Well, and then if we've kind of generalized what the environment is today, either collapsed core, or maybe you have collapsed everything in just one device that's handling it. What are some of the side effects that you're probably having or challenges we're having today? We already talked about security being one of those. It's a lot of manual tasking, ensuring those things get updated if you're going ACLs because you don't have any true separation between those. Um, how I'm sure cloud doesn't make it easy when everything's in there, and if you're trying to spin up instances in either AWS or Google Cloud, how are you gonna, you can't stretch your VLAN off your Catalyst all the way up to the cloud. What are some of the problems we see, like if you have that route, if you start adapting multi-cloud?
I mean, absolutely, that mindset of yeah, we're getting to the point now. You think about traditional data centers, like a data center was this brick and mortar structure and a square room with a bunch of racks in it. That's just not what the data center is anymore, right? The data center is in many places. And there may even be elements of your data center that live out on your campus. But we have to, since we're losing those boundaries in the physical space, we have to really establish those boundaries in the virtual space. We have to really specify that, this component of our network is data center and this other component is not. And to your point, as we extend our on-prem data center up into the cloud, or we establish a cloud presence, we have to have a linkage between that on-prem and the public cloud. That's the only way that's going to work. But you just you muddy the waters way too much when that on-prem core is the core for your campus data center. Now you're effectively extending that cloud directly into your campus, and it's just not. There's security concerns there. There's management concerns there, routing availability, etc.
It's funny because when we start talking about cloud, on-prem networking isn't the first topic at hand, right? It's not the first thing folks think about. And a lot of times, decisions get made to start migrating to public cloud without the network team being involved at all. And that's a huge issue because you
Right.
have to have a method for moving those workloads around between on-prem and cloud. We have very few customers that are 100% cloud, truly. Most of them are a hybrid type model. So you need those systems to be able to work well together, and that starts at day zero in the design and planning phase.
And that touches on an important topic, and this is maybe a little bit fringe, but I think it's still important to talk about. And that is that, we do see our developers, our application teams going to the cloud. And, if you think about it, if you think of your job as a network engineer, we, as a company, and, when I worked out in the commercial sector as a network engineer, I thought of my customer as the people using my system, but really my customer is, as a data center network engineer, my customer is the application owners. That's who my customer is, right? I need to provide a space. I'm like a landlord providing, um, a space for rent for these application owners, and they need a place to house their applications. Now,
Yeah.
if I'm the kind of landlord who, when you call me and say my hot water heater's out, and I say it's going to take me about a month and a half, but I will get that fixed, right? Or I need a new, I don't know, I need to paint the kitchen. I need you to paint the kitchen. I hate the color in here. And I say that I'll get that in 6 weeks. You're probably going to start looking for somewhere else to live, right? And that's what we're seeing in the data center space today. If a lot of our internal practices, and for good reasons, but a lot of our internal practices take a long time to deploy a new network for an app developer, right? They want a new application, they want to spin up some VMs, and we tell them, it's probably going to be 6 weeks. Meanwhile, they can go to AWS or Azure, and in an afternoon, they can have it. So if we can't match that experience in the on-prem data center, we're going to lose those people to the cloud. Whether the cloud is more expensive, whether the cloud is more or less secure, they're going to go to the cloud because that's where they can get it done. And so, so part of the push for bringing our on-prem data centers into kind of the modern state is really automation and automating that data center and really truly providing IaaS or infrastructure as a service for our customers, and those customers be the application owners. And I'm droning on here a bit, but if you compare that to the campus space, you have customers in the campus space as well, but those are not the application owners. Those are the guys sitting at their desk working, right? Very different customers. You have to put on a different hat when you're thinking of that, and you don't want to be managing the same core when you're wearing two different hats, right? It really helps that separation.
I thought that was like a perfect analogy. I don't think I ever thought of it that way, as like being a landlord and those are your tenants, and the way that, and the requests are perfect. Like, yeah, I need a new environment spun up, and thinking about, yeah, that's like a hot water tank, and it's going to take me that long. And you're so right that if we want to be able to still be engaging with those teams, we got to be able to have solutions for them. If we say, yeah, it'll be 6 months before like 6 weeks before I spin it up, they'll just leave us, so then we don't get any input in the conversation, go spin up their own environment, and then you're stuck trying to figure out how you're going to either connect it, support it, without even being, involved in the start, to where if we can have those conversations of like, here's where we need to get to, and then I can support whatever workloads you want, and we can do it on the fly. Everything will be pretty much, like more automated style, and then you're able to focus, if it's campus, a different way of where, and then data center a different way. So that is perfect. I'd never thought of it that way before. So.
I think automation kind of has different stages too. It's the discussion we've been having. Like stage one as network engineers, we think about automating what we do. Instead of us going out and typing commands into hundreds or thousands of switches or routers, I just want to launch a script that goes and does it. But the stage two, I feel like, of automation is, instead of me doing anything at all, when somebody in operations or marketing puts something into the CRM and says, "Hey, we're going to open up store 300. Here's the location. Here's how many people are going to be there. Here's what the footprint's going to look like." You can automatically, no, I'm going to need one router, one switch, 10 access points, and we can have scripts, pre-program that. Now that's a SD-WAN campus example, but same thing, with ACI on the data center side, with those app owners. Those app owners want to spin up a environment to start building an application. They don't want to have to depend on us.
Right. Absolutely. No, it's absolutely true. And you're right to call out. I kind of think of there are three flavors of automation, and the two you pointed out are great ones. The other one is the automation that is delivered to you. So and we'll get more to this in the second session, but you can purchase tools that do some automation for you, and ACI is a perfect example of that. A VXLAN overlay network to handle that L2 stretch, or that sort of thing. You can do that on your own. It's very complicated, messy to do. ACI automates that entirely for you. You don't even have to worry about like Python scripts or Ansible or any sort of automation tools. It just happens, right? That's great. And then to your point, there's the automation, which is like, I need something that will quickly do what used to take me a whole afternoon of typing CLI and many different switches. And then the last one, absolutely where we need to get to is that model of self-service portal. The application owner says, I need this much subnet space, I need these different network segments, I need these security rules, and name it this. And then all an engineer has to do is say, yep, looks good, approved, done.
Well, I think the last one I'll bring up, and so we've talked about the need for security. If you don't have it separated, how difficult it is to apply that when you're all collapsed on one. The ability to be agile, if you try and spin up different instances, how you can't be flexible to work with those. It's time consuming. You don't have a good way. Maybe you don't get involved in projects because you don't offer a good solution. To where if we have those separated, you have different solutions for different needs. And then last one is more of like maintenance. And so I know it's hard in my environments I've been in, things were running for years because I never got a window to do it because everything went through it. If we do the separation of breaking off the data center, you can affect campus because maybe those buildings, nobody's there after 8 o'clock. So your maintenance windows could be any time at this time because you're not impacting them, because you're not going to impact applications because that's a totally different area of your network. And then if you design it right on the data center side, you can still do updates without really impacting. You can either shift workloads if we have that set up correctly or set times. So I think another reason you want to look at this is the ability to actually make your environment up to date, security, features, bugs that are being discovered, just reasons that you'd want to. Kind of like, what are your thoughts on what opens up maintenance if we break data center off from the campus side?
I mean, absolutely. You called it out perfectly. I mean, most of your campus locations, oftentimes shut down at 5 or 6 or maybe 9, and you can do your maintenance at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. But your data center, think about when your backups are happening. They're not happening in the middle of the day. They're happening late at night, and you can't go into the data center and muck around with the networking there if those critical backups are running at that time. So absolutely separating those two and giving yourself the ability to do separate maintenance windows for the two is key. And and you bring up a great point. One of the biggest problems I see for customers as I go around and I visit them and I talk to them about their pain points, it's getting to the maintenance they need to do. I mean, they know I need to do this maintenance, I need to get this upgrade, I need to apply this patch, but finding a maintenance window that when they can get it done is a huge challenge. And so the more we can do to facilitate that, and there are various tools within the data center, but certainly one of the big things to get out of the way up front is separate off that campus so I can separate my campus maintenance from my data center.
It used to be a badge of honor what your longest on a switcher router, right? Like, and I still see screenshots of like 8 or 10 plus years, and I'm like, oh, that can't be good. That can't be good software running on that thing. But, that technology's come a long way too. Like in-service software upgrades, where we can do hitless upgrades. Within a specific subset of code, or fast software upgrades on the Catalyst series, where it's like a 30-second downtime to process a switch upgrade. So we've come a long way on that front as well. But I think long gone are the days of us wanting to stretch out the uptime of a switch. Fortunately,
I totally remember in an old job scheduling like a celebration and going out for a beer on the day that our data center Cat 6500, Cat OS 6500 hit 10 years of uptime.
See, this is where like that thinking needs to change of network reliability time 100, but my device is currently patched. And so, like that is the world we need to be in. Is like, we're going to celebrate 100 up like 9999, and I did it while also still being on current code. And that's where we've got to separate these two to do it. Otherwise, there's just not a way we can. So, all right. Well, I think that's going to sum up kind of like our intro. Hopefully, everybody, the next ones we'll focus on what the designing for a campus looks like. So if we do need a break off, how do I make my campus actually function the way I want it to? And then we're also going to focus in on the data center side, and we'll have Davis join us for those to kind of talk about what options we have, what we need to think about, and kind of what it would look like. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you on the next video.
See you guys.